You see these cobbled surface here? Those are actually stones that have been laid down to actually make the floor of the roundhouse. This is the surface on which the Iron Age people would have walked.
So how does all this relate to our Roman stuff?
We've actually got continuity. People living on the same site for literally hundreds, if not thousands of years. The first people that came here were the Iron Age people. And they would have had the chance to put their fields in, their droveways, and they would have actually had a whole landscape here, which the Romans would then have adapted when they built their houses here.
Houses? What do you mean houses? A couple of rooms maybe, but that's about it. It's 5 o'clock on our final day, and for some reason we seem to be extending Trench 4, where yesterday we'd failed to find Glyn's wall. Neil and Ben are looking anxious.
Oh, you know, there's certainly material coming through here.
What you doing over here?
Last minute, 5 to midnight hunch. I just wondered whether this yellow bonded material here is the same as the core of the wall that Matt's been finding. And if it is, then, you know, this is a much bigger building than we've perhaps been thinking of so far.
The key to it, as well as the facing stones, is this clay. This is redeposited clay, and I think they're using this to set the stones into.
Give me 10 minutes, I'll get Ian in, just pull a bit more of this back and we'll know one with the other.
You've been saying that for the best part of 3 days.
OK.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So in a final effort, Neil's extended Trench 4 to find a wall line that he hopes will link up with the apse in Trench 3. All eyes are now on Ben and Neil to see if they can finally locate this elusive villa.
OK. Well, Ben, this has been a bit of a frantic last-minute exercise. I mean, what do you think we got?
I think we've got it. I think the key to it is this yellow clay. I think it's a bedding material. I think they've laid this down to create a platform and put the building on top.
The fact this is so similar to the material that Matt's getting over there does suggest that we are dealing with the same structure, doesn't it? And, you know, we always thought it was quite small to start with, but as it's gone on, it's got kind of bigger, and it's actually quite a respectable size now, isn't it, really?
Well, this is quite a spread of material here, isn't it, now? We're looking at something big and rectangular.
Our time is up. So, has it all been worthwhile? Neil, it's 5:45, day 3. Have we got a villa?
Yes, we have. Quite a respectable one as well. About 20 metres long, tiled roof, stone walls. Perfectly respectable villa.
And respectable's right. Rather than the grand multi-roomed villa we'd expected, we found a modest country house instead. After 3 days of agony, we've got the stone wall of a timber-framed building with an apse at one end. Inside that, a dining room with a mortared floor. And next door, a wooden outhouse, all built in the late Roman period on a site where people had already been living for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Lloyd, it's been such a helter-skelter, hasn't it? I bet you thought we'd just come in, dig some stuff up and dust it off for you.
Well, we knew it was a complicated site, Tony, so it's just a case of bringing all the ideas together.
Helen, we've had so many smart archaeologists around, and yet the amount of time it took to evaluate what was here was enormous.
I know, it seems to have gone at breakneck speed today, but I think what it's reminded us is how difficult it is to reconcile topsoil archaeology, topsoil finds, with what's underneath.
Lloyd, as a final present for you to play with after we've left, John's still been beavering away, doing his geophys, and he's just turned up, look, some more Roman buildings here.
That's marvellous, Tony. Thank you very much.
But do us a favour, don't ask us to come back and dig it for you. But all our dating evidence shows this lucrative trade stopped suddenly in the 6th century. Thank you, Francis. That's why this cluster of houses was such a peculiar shape. Throughout the day in Phil's Harbour Trench, we've been building up a picture of Roman traders. We found coins, Samian ware, slag and food waste. But we've been missing a crucial piece of evidence until now.
These, Tony, are African red slipware sherds, which down here in Cornwall generally mean 5th and 6th century deposits.
So that's post-Roman.
Indeed, yes.
And where were they found?
Well, this is the important thing. Those sherds were found in there. In other words, they are well stratified. All the other sherds that we've had of that type of pottery have been in the colluvium, the hill wash, so they're totally unstratified. The stratification for them is good. You see,
Now that's digging speak for undisturbed archaeology. And it proves that these Byzantine finds in Phil's Trench are contemporary with Matt's finds next door. Although we didn't find any proof to link our two fields, we now believe the whole site probably evolved over many hundreds of years from a Bronze Age farming community into one of the small but bustling late Iron Age trading centres scattered around the Cornish coast, meeting the demands for local commodities as the Roman Empire expanded. After the Romans disappeared in the 5th century, merchants would have continued to call in occasionally with their exotic goods until the Byzantine Empire faded several hundred years later. It's lovely, isn't it? The perfect Cornish seaside picture with fields rolling down to the sea. It's hard to imagine just how busy it must have been in the ancient past, with a thriving settlement trading with ships sailing in from the continent and beyond. And as they came in below that cliff just there, they would have brought with them fancy goods like oil and wine and new ideas too. Perfectly symbolised by this find that's come up in the last hour or so. It's a stylus, possibly the earliest evidence of writing ever found in Cornwall, dating from around 200 AD. Maybe it was used to record all those imports.
See the brick floor here, which joins up this wall and this wall. So they were definitely contemporary.
Right. So does that help us, Jonathan, in explaining what it is?
It does. If you're standing in what's a passageway,
yeah,
that makes sense. And this is a pier there, so that a column of brickwork rose from it.
Right.
This ties in exactly with what John Aubrey shows in his 1670s survey of this being a whole arcaded wall with a terrace on top. And that explains the bulk.
So we're underneath it here.
Exactly. You're just outside the wall.
Yeah.
Matt is under the terrace, and so about 5 feet over our head would have been a walkway. So Mick, the bricks are all over the place. We're not going to learn much from them. So the building's got to speak to us. Now, that feature up there.
Yeah. Well, it's a window.
It's a window now, isn't it? But what about the proportion?
It's more like a doorway, isn't it?
It is too.
Yeah.
It is. Did Wainfleet have that door put in, or is it later?
Well, there's no ragged hole around it. It's contemporary with the tower, isn't it?
Absolutely. But now it goes out onto thin air. If it is a two-storey wall, there should be some way of getting to the underside of it.
Well, that's rather good, isn't it?
So we've found our defensive wall of 2 levels with a covered walkway on top. And what's more, it's pure Wainfleet. But Penny's not going to let us stop now. She's certain there's more of that keep down there.
It would be wonderful to get the return so we know the proportion.
You're talking like an archaeologist.
Just the more you dig, the more we find out.
I know.
So,
but the more we got to put back.
Well, I'll put it back, just please.
All right, we'll take out a bit more.
If the taking away of it's the problem, then I'll help put it back. I'd just rather you find
out a
the
bit more.
Yes, please.
All right, we'll take out a bit more.
Phil doesn't seem to need a lot of encouragement for Penny to get her way. The glazed bricks have been fired for 24 hours, and it's the moment to see whether our experiment to replicate the finish on Wainfleet's diaper work has been a success.
Is this the glaze that we thought was going to be the feldspar, potash feldspar?
No, this is the one, and the temperature hasn't gone high enough to flux the glaze, so it hasn't melted at all.
No, it's completely unshiny. It doesn't even look like glaze.
No, and the wood ash hasn't melted either.
So does that mean that the temperature needed to get over 1,000 degrees?
Yes.
Then to create the glaze?
If we'd gone any hotter, the brick would have melted.
It's actually begun to
begun to go into shape, yeah.
This is an incredibly vivid one here.
Well, that's the lead glaze with copper in.
So, Tony, are you happy that we've reproduced something similar to Wainfleet's tower?
I have spent about 4.5 years trying to achieve this effect and fired nearly 1,000 bricks, and this is the best so far.
And for me, what's so amazing about this is the incredible glittery effect that you get. There's just no way you could do this with stone.
No, absolutely not.
While Bridge and Helen have rediscovered the lost art of brick glazing, Phil and Penny are making sterling progress, and the octagonal turret is beginning to take shape. This is a strange twist for time, team. There's all the experts standing on the edge of the trench watching the owner of the garden do the digging. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Very much so. I'm a willing apprentice.
What's he like as a teacher?
I've got no complaints. Bit cheeky at times.
She's still under instruction.
Yes.
You said that you thought that this trench would be the linchpin of everything that we were doing.
Yeah.
What is it that we found?
Well, this is one of the most amazing things I've seen on Time Team. This is a corner of a vast brick keep that must have accompanied the gatehouse, and it's Wainfleet's character of building. And this should have been his lodgings.
And the whole arrangement would have been impressive, wouldn't it? You know, you imagine coming through the big brick gatehouse into a courtyard, and no sooner have you got past that's impressive, you get into a courtyard out here, and there in front of you is an even bigger brick tower.
When you come through the gatehouse that he's built, he has a 2-storey wall with a terrace on the top. He's got his own private link between the gatehouse and his lodgings, because that's what this is all about. It's smart lodgings in a place that looks like a defensible castle.
What's the relationship of this keep with the Great Hall? Does he live in both of them, or does he live in one of them?
I think it depends on whether he's visiting here as a stopping-off route, on his way to London, or whether he's having visitors here, because if he needs to entertain, then he's going to be in the hall and retreat to the lodging. If he's on his own, he may as well just walk through the gatehouse and lock himself in his room.
The hall's a big display place, isn't it? Where, you have feasting, you show off how wealthy you are, how much food you've got, and so on. He's not going to do that if he's just going to come in for a pint and a sandwich on the way on the journey.
Well, it's the perfect end to our 3 days in Esher. A major brick-built palace that had been lost for 300 years. He wanted Wainfleet's reputation restored. Seems like he's kind of done it himself, doesn't it? Got this massive gatehouse, put a defensive wall, a curtain wall, all the way around it. Lots of buildings here for food preparation, kitchen, great hall dominating the middle of this area, and right over there, even bigger than the gatehouse, a keep, and virtually all of the buildings in your garden.
Hello, my name's John Gator. Time Team is fan-funded by Patreon. This vital support helps us to make new episodes. Joining Patreon gives you access to exclusive interviews, 3D models and masterclasses, plus lots more.